Okay, today we're going over photosynthesis and cellular respiration. We've all heard of photosynthesis when we were talking about plant cells, and I've brought up the word cellular respiration a few times before, but we haven't really went into detail. Today we're going to go in detail. So we're going to start with photosynthesis. As per usual with these notes, you're going to underline, well, the words that are underlined on the slide are the words that you write down. So photosynthesis, what is it? It's the process through which plants capture light energy from the sun and change it into food. It becomes a source of energy for the plant and the organisms that eat the plant. Photosynthesis is where everything gets the energy it needs to live. So here on the next slide, we're going to go over a bit more what the products and reactants are. So pigments in the plant. Pigments are molecules in plant that absorb light energy. They're in the chlorophyll. They're the main pigment in photosynthesis. These are green. These are found in chloroplast. So chlorophyll right here is found in chloroplast. My circles are not the best, but we can make do. Chlorophyll fills chloroplast. It is also green. It's green. This is what makes the plant green. Here is the equation for photosynthesis. So plants use light energy to change carbon dioxide, which you'll see as CO2. You should actually write it like this. You should write CO and then a lowercase 2. And then same with water. Water is H2O. Into simple sugar known as glucose. So that is this right here. C6H12O6, you're going to need to know what that is. You'll see it a few more times, and it also makes oxygen. So let's talk about a little bit more what that looks like. It won't erase. Oh well, that's fine. Scribble all through it. So on your left side, so over here, these are your reactants. Okay? So those are things that go into the equation. On your right side, so over here, you have your products. Products are like you go to a store, right? The products are things that you buy. So these are the things that come out of your store trip. It's the best way I can come up with how you can remember that. So reactants are over here on the left side. Products are over here on the right side. You will need to know or at least recognize this when you see it. So we're talking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration today. So cellular respiration, there are two ways that your body can break down food molecules in order to release energy. There is cellular respiration, which uses oxygen, and then fermentation, which does not use oxygen. When you hear respiration, what do you think of? When you hear respiration, you should think of breathing. It's not a good color. Think of breathing, okay? When you respire or your respiratory system, that has to do with breathing. Breathing supplies your cells with oxygen. We breathe in oxygen. If your oxygen is low, those of you that have asthma may have had oxygen tubes before. I've had those before. If you have, that gives your body oxygen. When your oxygen gets low, you get really tired. And then if your oxygen is completely cut off, you will eventually die. But you need oxygen to do cellular respiration. There is a way to do respiration without oxygen, but it is not as efficient, so you don't get as much energy. And we'll talk about fermentation a bit too. So in the equation for cellular respiration, glucose is broken down into CO2, which is carbon dioxide, and H2O, which is water, and energy is released in the form of ATP. Remember ATP? We talked about that a bit when we talked about organelles. It's the energy source that cells use. And this process takes place in the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. So glucose is here. Once again, you see C6H12O6. You have oxygen. That's just your O2. So that's the reactants or products. It's the reactants. And they yield this right here, this right here, these circles here mean yield, teaching you some chemistry, yield the products. So over here we have carbon dioxide. Di means what? What does di mean? It means two. So carbon dioxide means carbon and two oxygens. And then water, so H2O, water. And then you get ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. You want that. You get a lot of this from this. A lot of this from cellular respiration. So, did you notice anything about cellular respiration and photosynthesis? Go back and look at your notes real fast before we move on. So, photosynthesis and cellular respiration are the opposite of each other. So the products of the one are the reactants of the other. So let's look at glucose here. Is glucose the product or the reactant of photosynthesis? So of this. Is it the product or the reactant? It's the product. Okay? Oxygen, is it the product or the reactant of photosynthesis? Oxygen. It's the product. So these glucose and oxygen go into cellular respiration. Cellular respiration releases CO2 and H2O. Both of these are the products or reactants of photosynthesis. So the reactants. We'll have plenty of practice with this later today. But just so you know, please, please, please remember that they are interrelated with each other, meaning the products of photosynthesis are the reactants for cellular respiration, and the products of cellular respiration are the reactants in the photosynthesis. So fermentation is a process used when your muscles can't get the oxygen they need to produce ATP by cellular respiration. Fermentation produces a small amount of ATP from partial breakdown of glucose. There are two types. The first occurs in your muscles. It produces lactic acid. Don't confuse lactic acid with lactose or lactose intolerant. They're not the same thing. This is believed to what makes you sore. This is believed to what makes you sore. There's still some questions out there if that's entirely true, but right now that's what scientists is showing us. The second time happens in certain bacteria and yeast. So this is what makes your bread rise. Anybody ever heard of yeast rolls? Yeast rolls make your bread. Yeast releases carbon dioxide, makes it fluffy, and then bacteria also releases carbon dioxide in certain yogurts and things like that.